Analysis on the show today. Stay tuned.
Well, also on the show, from the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukrainian drone attack on a town in Russia's Bryansk border region has killed 3 rail workers on Thursday, hitting a locomotive at a station. Now, Ukraine has recently intensified airstrikes, claiming it is targeting military sites, but also energy infrastructure to reduce Moscow's ability to finance its offensive. We'll bring you all the latest on that as well on the show. Let's begin with the headlines.
Prime Minister Modi chairs marathon meeting of Union Council of Ministers, urging faster completion of pending work and more efficient governance. Reiterates that Viksit Bharat 2047 vision is a long-term national goal rather than just a slogan.
Well, we want it open. We want it free. We don't want tolls. It's international. It's an international waterway. They're not charging tolls.
Donald Trump says the United States does not want tolls on the Strait of Hormuz and vows to seize it on stockpile of highly enriched uranium, saying it would likely be destroyed afterward to prevent Iran from keeping it.
Israel says it has deported all foreign activists detained from Gaza-bound flotilla after intercepting them at sea, with first group arriving in Turkey. Around 422 activists, including 85 Turkish nationals, were flown out on chartered planes.
Okay. Do you want to do an interview for Reuters?
Turkey's main opposition leader, Özgür Özel, appeals court ruling that annuls his party's 2023 Congress and removes him from leadership. He calls the decision a coup against people and says the party will resist it.
Trump announces deployment of 5,000 additional U.S. troops to Poland, citing his close ties with Polish President Karol Nawrocki after an earlier planned deployment was cancelled amid pressure on Europe to fend for itself.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says chances of peaceful negotiated settlement with Cuba are low, despite Washington's preference for diplomacy. He knows U.S. will continue pressuring the island's government while Trump pushes for regime change in Cuba.
Nineteen people killed in a shooting at a palm plantation in northern Honduras' WION region, an area known for gang violence over plantation and drug routes. The attack comes as the country moves towards tougher anti-gang security measures.
Elon Musk's SpaceX postpones planned launch of its upgraded Starship rocket after several countdown interruptions, calling off Thursday's test. Company says it is aiming for another launch attempt on Friday.
Japan's core inflation slowed to a 4-year low in April, easing to 1.4% as government subsidies help curb consumer prices and rising energy costs and West Asia tensions. However, they continue to pressure the Bank of Japan ahead of possible rate hike.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has said that U.S. will retrieve Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium and destroy it.
And speaking to reporters at the Oval Office, Trump said that Washington will not let Tehran retain its enriched uranium. Trump also said that the U.S. does not want any toll on the Strait of Hormuz, adding that Iran is losing close to $500 million a day as no ship has been able to get past the strait without U.S. approval.
There hasn't been a ship that's been able to get through without our approval. And the Navy has done an amazing job. And no ship is going to Iran, as you know. No ship is going to, or out of Iran without our approval. No, we get the highly enriched. We will get it. We don't need it. We don't want it. We'll probably destroy it after we get it, but we're not going to let them have it.
Well, Trump was also asked whether he plans to attend the wedding of his son this weekend, to which he responded saying he will try and make it since the timing wasn't good as he is occupied with the war in Iran.
I'm in the midst. I said, you know, this is not good timing for me. I have a thing called Iran and other things. That's one I can't win on. If I do attend, I get killed. If I don't attend, I get killed. By the fake news, of course, I'm talking about.
Well, separately, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has expressed optimism that Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir's visit to Tehran will advance diplomacy on ending the war. Speaking to reporters, Rubio said that the U.S. president prefers a good deal with Iran. Listen to this.
But obviously, we're dealing with a system that itself is a little fractured, so the Iranian system. And so, but that said, there'll be a couple visits. I understand, I believe the Pakistanis will be traveling to Tehran today, so hopefully that'll advance this further. The president's preference is to do a good deal. That's his preference. It's always been his preference.
However, a report by Saudi-owned media outlet Al Arabiya has said that Munir will not travel to Iran today, but Iranian media reports say that Munir's visit is aimed at continuing talks and consultations with Iranian authorities. Now, the visit assumes significance as it follows Trump's warning that negotiations to end the war were on the borderline between a deal and renewed strikes.
Meanwhile, a report by Al Arabiya says that a final draft of a U.S.-Iran agreement has been reached, including an immediate ceasefire, freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, gradual sanctions relief and negotiations on outstanding issues. Well, the report claims that the final draft agreement could be announced during Munir's visit.
However, a senior Iranian official has told voters that talks are progressing, but no deal has been reached yet. Furthermore, the Iranian source told Reuters that differences between Washington and Tehran have narrowed to Iran's uranium enrichment and its control over the Strait of Hormuz.
Meanwhile, in the United States, Republicans called off vote on Iran war resolution that was on the verge of passing. The resolution seeks to rein in Trump's military campaign in Iran, but as it became clear that Republicans would not have the numbers to defeat the bill, the GOP leaders declined to hold a vote on it, inviting sharp criticism from the Democrats.
All right, to discuss more, we are now being joined by Peter Kusnik from Washington, D.C. He's a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Always a pleasure talking to you. I'd like to, of course, start with what Trump has now said, that he has vowed that U.S. will get the uranium at the same time. There are also reports that Moshtaba Khamenei has said that no uranium will go out of the country. Now, again, this is a sticking point which remains, and it seems like it goes back to the same points. They're not happy with each other's concessions. Where do you think the talks are headed?
They're at loggerheads. They've been stuck in the same place for 6 weeks since the ceasefire began. Neither side is budging. And Trump is in a very difficult position right now. He doesn't have any good options. His approval ratings are dropping by the day. Support for the war is below 30%, really. And there's a lot of pressure on him from his own party. There's a bit of a rebellion going on in the Republican ranks. Some of it's about this corrupt deal that Trump is trying to put through now for $1.8 billion. But we saw with that war powers vote today that finally Republicans are starting to stand up to Trump, and they were going to vote to stop the authorization for this war, and so they canceled the vote. So Trump is in a very, very difficult position, which makes it even more dangerous because he's capable of lashing out in a very reckless way. And we know there have been a lot of nuclear threats going on. Recently, Vance, who's considered to be one of the more dovish members of the administration, said that the United States has a lot of tools in its toolkit that it hasn't used yet. And people know what that means. We make nuclear threats, but Trump makes threats every day. One time he's going to say we're very close to a deal, and they want a deal. The next day he threatens to bomb them back to the Stone Ages or to erase Iranian civilization in the next 24 hours. So we're all over the place on this, but it's not looking positive right now because Iran knows that it has Trump where they want him, and they know that Trump is much more desperate. The CIA recently reported that Iran can hold out for 3 to 4 months with the Strait of Hormuz being blockaded. The United States is under a lot of pressure, as is the world economy, because it's not only the Americans, the Iranians who are suffering, people in India are suffering, farmers in India are suffering, and all across the world, a lot.
Absolutely, Professor Kuznick. And we understand that Washington is under a lot of pressure and Trump is facing pressure both domestically and internationally. And at the same time, that has raised the fear that he might declare a premature victory without meeting the said objectives of the war. And now there have been reports that there are some disagreements between Israel and Washington, which did surface in a very tense call that happened yesterday. But of course, the optics of it all and on the face of it all, Washington has said that they do meet eye to eye on the issue. But how aligned do you think Israel and the United States are on the Iran war at this juncture?
I think there's growing separation. The last thing that Netanyahu and his cabinet wants is for there to be a resolution without regime change in Iran and without a final deal on nuclear energy. And on what's going to happen with the highly enriched uranium. So there's 970 pounds of highly enriched uranium at 60% enrichment, but there are also thousands of pounds of lower enriched uranium and plutonium. Iran insists on having the right to enriched uranium. You know, all of this the United States had under the JCPOA, the deal that Obama negotiated with the help of a lot of other countries in 2015. But Trump tore it up. And it looks like Trump would love at this point to be able to get back to a deal that's almost as good as the one that he tore up. But the Iranians know they've got a chokehold, and they also know that the United States and Israel have attacked them illegally twice in the midst of negotiations. So they're in no mood to give Trump a pass on this or to make it easy for Trump. So that's why we're in a dangerous situation, because it could escalate. And the Iranians said now that if the U.S. and Israel start bombing again, then the Iranians are going to retaliate not only in the region, but outside the region. We don't know what that means, but it sounds quite ominous. We do know the CIA is reporting that Iran retains most of its capabilities, 75% of its launchers, 70% of its missiles. We know that Iran did successfully strike 217 U.S. military sites in the region, is significantly damaged 9 U.S. bases in the region in 5 different countries. So Iran has this capability at the same time that the U.S. and Israeli and Gulf state countries have lost most of their interceptors. So their ability to resist another Iranian attack is very, very limited. So the world hopes that this can be resolved diplomatically, but the United States would have to give a lot in order to get that resolution.
Right. And as you mentioned, of course, this is a big deal for Trump, but of course, it's also for Iran. At this point in time, of course, economically, it's something, even they are not doing well. And if we talk about something like a toll, which is something, of course, not every country would want to give a toll to Iran on that part to get their ships to move from there, because in that case, I think every canal would do that. So when you look at how Iran or the concessions that they're doing, how do you assess Iran's position in this place? Are they just taking advantage of the fact that, of course, this is Trump is nearing the midterm elections, he's not able to resolve it? Or do you think that, how long can Iran hold at this point? Because there are some concessions both sides have to make to come to a deal.
Yeah, the Iranians are looking at the clock and they're looking at the calendar, and they know that Trump is desperate because his approval ratings are so low in the United States. The price of gas keeps going up, the price of diesel keeps going up, fertilizer keeps going up, and the Iranians calculate that they can hold out longer than Trump can hold out at this point. And they're making very strong demands. They're saying they want the sanctions lifted, they want reparations, they want control over the Strait of Hormuz, they want the frozen assets. These are all things that the United States says it cannot accept. And Iran says we want a ceasefire, and then we want to deal later with the nuclear issues. Trump keeps saying, well, they can't have a nuclear bomb. The terrible thing is that Iran was more than a year away from a nuclear bomb when Trump tore up the JCPOA. And the Iranian leader, Khamenei, had a fatwa against Iran developing a nuclear weapon. Now the moderate leadership has been killed in Iran. They've been replaced by hardliners, people with vengeance, who are in much less of a mood to compromise than the people who Israel and the United States killed in those initial attacks. So that's why people who study this are not very optimistic. Trump, Rubio, Vance keep saying we're making progress, we're getting closer. You don't hear that coming out of Iran, and you don't hear that coming out of most of the experts.
All right. Of course, we'll have to, hope for the best. But of course, it looks, as you suggested, there were reports of Iran building its arsenal at the same time. Then there's Trump, the elections and everything. Of course, it seems like this is a moment where they have to get down and get to a deal, because that's leading to a global economic problem. But thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and giving your perspective on this. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having me.
And Israel says it has deported all foreign activists detained after Israeli forces intercepted a Gaza-bound aid flotilla earlier this week.
And this comes amid mounting international criticism over the activists' treatment in custody. Hundreds of activists from the countries around the world were detained after Israeli naval forces stopped the flotilla at sea on Monday during the latest attempt to challenge Israel's blockade of Gaza.
Turkish Foreign Ministry sources say that 422 activists, including 85 Turkish nationals, they were flown out of southern Israel on 3 chartered aircraft arranged by Ankara. Some of the first arrivals were later seen at the VIP terminal of Istanbul airport as families and supporters gathered to welcome them home.
The flotilla incident has triggered protests and diplomatic backlash across several countries. In Greece, supporters of the Gaza-bound aid convoy marched to the Israeli embassy in Athens. Supporters condemned the detention and alleged mistreatment of activists while in Israeli custody.
We were taken to a prison boat, 3 of them I'm pretty sure. In one of the prison boats, 35 people suffered fractures to their ribs. People said there was at least 12 sexual assaults that took place. People were tased. Me personally, I was kept in cuffs where I can't feel my hands anymore. I was kicked in the ribs multiple times.
Now, one of the returning activists, Bilal Kitay, a Turkish national from the mainly Kurdish city of Bengal in eastern Turkey, was reunited with his wife after arriving home. Kitay said that this was his second mission with the flotilla for Gaza and that he had been traveling on a vessel carrying around 10 activists. He claimed the interceptions by Israeli forces was far more than violent than a previous flotilla operation in April. Speaking after his return, Kitay sharply criticized the treatment of detainees and said that he still intends to join future aid convoys heading towards Gaza.
Now, international outrage intensified after Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir released videos appearing to mock detained activists who were pinned to the ground, while two detainees later alleged they had been physically assaulted while in custody.
Free Palestine!
The quietest era that had ever been. It comes thanks to deterrence. The Temple Mount is in our hands. The Temple Mount is ours.
Well, the controversy surrounding the flotilla operation is now spreading further across Europe. Italy is considering sanctions against Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir.
There is a position. There is a position of a minister. Regarding yesterday's affair, everyone distanced themselves. There has been a clash going on within the government. A very tough controversy between the foreign minister and Ben-Gvir, even at the Knesset, because the foreign minister condemned the position of, as far as the story of the flotilla is concerned.
Now, Greece's foreign ministry described Ben-Gvir's behavior as unacceptable and absolutely condemnable and demanded the immediate release of Greek citizens being held in detention.
Now, at the United Nations Security Council, fresh warnings have also been issued over the future of Gaza. A lead envoy of the Board of Peace Initiative warned that the enclave's current division, it could become permanent unless a ceasefire is reached soon. Listen to this.
I want to be clear about the risks of inaction by the parties. The risk is that the deteriorating status quo becomes permanent. A divided Gaza, Hamas holding military and administrative control over 2 million people across less than half the territory. Those people are likely to remain trapped in the rubble, dependent on aid, with no meaningful reconstruction, because reconstruction financing will not follow where weapons have not been laid down.
The Board of Peace was established by the U.S. President Donald Trump as part of an ambitious effort to end Israel's 2-year war in Gaza and oversee reconstruction of the devastated territory. However, implementation of the initiative has stalled amid continuing hostilities.
More than 6 months after the United Nations endorsed a peace framework for Gaza, leading international aid groups including Oxfam, Save the Children and Refugees International say that there remains a major gap between Israel's commitments and the reality facing civilians on the ground.
According to the latest UN figures, the number of settler attacks causing casualties or damage this year has now surpassed 870 incidents.
Well, separately, the United States says its decision to remove Francesca Albanese, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied West Bank and Gaza, from a sanctions list is only temporary and does not represent any broader shift in U.S. policy.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump says he is sending 5,000 troops to Poland.
And this after Washington said that an earlier planned deployment has been called off amid pressure on Europe to fend for itself. And Trump said that the move is based on his relationship with Poland's President Karol Nawrocki, a nationalist ally whom he said he was proud to endorse in elections that Nawrocki won last year.
In his Truth social media post making the announcement, Trump did not give further details, but his comments appeared to refer to a deployment of several thousand U.S. troops to Poland, whose fate has been unclear for several days.
Last week, U.S. officials said the deployment of 4,000 U.S. forces to Poland has been scrapped, and the latest move by Trump's administration to slash troop numbers and punish NATO allies for not helping with the Iran war.
Well, on Tuesday, Vice President J.D. Vance said that the deployment of the 4,000 troops had been delayed, not cancelled, adding that Trump had not made a final determination.
However, Vance added that Europe had to stand on its own 2 feet as Trump continues his push to get European allies to take more of the burden for their own defense.
Now, Trump has appeared determined to punish allies who have failed to back the West Asia war or contribute to a peacekeeping force in the crucial Strait of Hormuz waterway, which Iran has effectively closed.
At the beginning of May, the Pentagon announced that Washington would pull 5,000 troops from Germany after Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that Iran was humiliating the United States at the negotiating table.
Meanwhile, NATO foreign ministers began a two-day meeting in southern Sweden with an informal dinner at Sofiero Palace in Helsingborg. And this was attended by King Carl and Gustaf and Queen Sylvia alongside members of the NATO Ukraine Council.
Now, Marco Rubio is set to join talks focusing on greater burden sharing within the alliance, marking Sweden's first NATO-hosted ministerial meeting since joining the alliance in 2024.
Now, Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson said Europe needs to increase defense spending and strengthen military capabilities, adding that Sweden is committed to reaching a target of spending 5% of GDP on defense by 2030.
We fully recognize that Europe must step up its own spending and military capabilities and assume a greater share of the burden for NATO's collective defense. We also count on that burden shift being conducted in a very orderly manner.
All right, we'll be going into a very short break right now. World DNA will be back with more news and updates. We leave you with some quick images drawing attention around the world from conflict zones to powerful protests. Let's have a look.
Elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is One.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Lights, camera, and artificial intelligence. Know all about the changing landscape of filmmaking. Take a look at the legacy of James Bond. And know what Colombian pop star Shakira is up to. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One, and this is World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar, and my colleague Diksha Bisla. Let's begin with the headlines quickly.
Prime Minister Modi chairs marathon meeting of Union Council of Ministers, urging faster completion of pending work and more efficient governance. Reiterates that Viksit Bharat 2047 vision is a long-term national goal rather than just a slogan.
Well, we want it open. We want it free. We don't want tolls. It's international. It's an international waterway. They're not charging tolls.
Donald Trump says the United States does not want tolls on the Strait of Hormuz and vows to seize Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, saying it will likely be destroyed afterward to prevent Iran from keeping it.
Trump says he plans to try and attend his eldest son, Donald Trump Jr.'s wedding in the Bahamas this weekend, but calls the timing bad due to the ongoing Iran war. Notes that the media attention on such a visit could attract amid the conflict.
Israel says it has deported all foreign activists detained from Gaza Ban flotilla after intercepting them at sea, with first group arriving in Turkey. Around 422 activists, including 85 Turkish nationals, flown out on chartered planes.
Turkey's main opposition leader, Özgür Özel, appeals court's ruling that annuls his party's 2023 Congress and removes him from leadership. He calls the decision a coup against people and says the party will resist it.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says chances of peaceful negotiated settlement with Cuba are low, despite Washington's preference for diplomacy. He notes U.S. will continue pressuring the island's government while Trump pushes for regime change in Cuba.
Nineteen people killed in a shooting at a palm plantation in northern Honduras' Bajo Aguan region, an area known for gang violence over plantation and drug routes. The attack comes as the country moves towards tougher anti-gang security measures.
Delhi experiences its warmest May night in nearly 14 years as heat wave conditions persist for fourth consecutive day, with some areas exceeding 45 degrees Celsius. Safdajung records a minimum temperature of 31.9 degrees Celsius, that is 5.2 notches above normal.
Oil prices surged on Friday after declining for 3 straight sessions, with Brent crude up to $104 a barrel and US crude to $97. This comes as uncertainty over US-Iran peace talks and Strait of Hormuz disruptions fuels supply fears. Hamza Burhan, a key operative linked to the Pakistan-backed terror group Al-Badr, has reportedly been killed in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
And reports say that the shooting took place in Muzaffarabad, where Burhan had been active for the past 7 years. And the family of Hamza Burhan say they haven't endured significant hardship as a result of his actions. And speaking to the media, his father said that the family lost contact with him after he reportedly traveled to Pakistan to pursue MBBS studies.
He went to Pakistan to pursue MBBS initially for 13 days. 2 months later, we got to know that he had joined terror activities. Following this, we alerted the authorities and intel agencies about him. Since then, our family is no longer in contact with him.
Well, Hamza is also believed to have worked as an overground worker during the 2019 Pulwama terror attack. The Pulwama attack was a vehicle-borne suicide bombing that occurred on 14th February 2019, resulting in the deaths of 40 CRPF personnel.
The Pakistan-based Islamist terrorist group Jaish-e-Mohammed had claimed responsibility for the terror attack that killed 40 CRPF personnel. Intelligence agencies link Hamza to propaganda, recruitment and radicalization activities in Jammu and Kashmir. Security officials also suspect his role in several targeted killings in the valley.
Now, Hamza Burhan's killing is the latest in a series of attacks targeting terror operatives inside Pakistan. Over the past few years, several members of Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed have been shot dead by unknown gunmen or killed under mysterious circumstances.
Now, last month, Amir Hamza, a founding member of Lashkar-e-Toiba, was shot dead by bike-borne assailants in Lahore.
Earlier this year, Mohammad Tahir Anwar, the elder brother of Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar, he had died in Pakistan under unexplained circumstances.
Now, in 2024, top Lashkar-e-Toiba operative Abu Qatar was shot dead in Pakistan's Jhelum region. Abu Qatar was known to be a close aide of Hafiz Saeed. He was also linked to the Raisi attack that left 9 people dead.
Well, according to Jammu and Kashmir police, 19 terror operatives have been identified in connection with the Pulwama attack. Of them, 8 have been killed, 7 arrested, while 4 are still absconding.
Now, the arrest of a 31-year-old woman named Pinky has triggered shockwaves across the power elite.
From an aspiring model to an alleged drug queen with high-profile clients, she has now come under the lens for reportedly naming ex-Prime Minister Raja Parvez Ashraf as a client. After a purported video clip showing her take the name, Raja Parvez went viral. This matter was escalated in Pakistan's National Assembly. Ashraf, who briefly served as Pakistan's Prime Minister from June 2012 to March 2013, he made it clear that he had no connection with drugs.
Earlier this week, though, Pinky told a court that she was being forced to implicate influential people in the case.
I have led a spotless life. I am a 4-time member of this House. I have been the Prime Minister of this country. I have been the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Well, this is not all. Pinky leveled a big charge outside the courtroom, alleging that authorities were forcing her to take the name of a person living in Banigala.
And this gave rise to speculation that she was perhaps referring to ex-PM Imran Khan, as he is the most famous resident of Banigala.
Amid this, Pakistan's Information Minister Ayatollah Tarar expressed solidarity with Ashraf, stressing that the accusation was so frivolous in nature that no one would pay heed to it. However, Speaker Ayaz Sadiq cautioned that the menace of drugs was making the whole nation hollow and urged lawmakers to pass an effective legislation to curb this.
Now let's take a look at Pinky's background. Born in Karachi in 1995, she reportedly left her studies in the 8th grade and moved to Lahore to pursue a modeling career. As per reports, she got introduced to the world of crime after her marriage to a lawyer. And after separating from him, she built her own network that used WhatsApp and social media to supply narcotics, especially cocaine, to clients in upscale areas across multiple cities, including Lahore and Karachi. As per reports, investigators have claimed that she allegedly sold drugs worth millions of Pakistani rupees daily.
Well, arrested on May 12th, she is under police custody in connection with multiple cases. She is also facing charges of murder after police allege that the drugs sold by her led to the death of a man.
However, the prolonged inaction against her has raised questions about her connections with powerful quarters in Pakistan. For instance, multiple police personnel were suspended after she was accorded VIP treatment during her first court appearance. As per the police probe, she was not just escorted by the police with respect, but also provided with mobile phones.
However, this is a nationwide crisis. As per the United Nations data, close to 7.6 million Pakistanis are believed to be drug addicts. Additionally, Pakistan is considered to be a part of the Golden Crescent, along with Afghanistan and Iran, as these nations are major opium producers. It is also known as the Silk Route of drugs, as they are trafficked to multiple parts of the world.
However, after Taliban's strict ban on poppy cultivation in 2022, Pakistan is reportedly overtaking Afghanistan as the leading hub of global opium production, with poppy fields on the rise in Balochistan.
And the Calcutta High Court has upheld the ban on cattle slaughter in public places and refused to stay the West Bengal government order regulating slaughter ahead of Eid al-Adha.
Now, in a public notice issued on May 13, the government said that bulls, bullocks, cows, calves, and buffaloes cannot be slaughtered without a certificate of their lack of fitness. It also said that certified unfit animals can be slaughtered only in slaughterhouses approved by authorities. It also allowed inspection of any premises to prevent illegal slaughtering of animals.
While refusing to interfere with the notice, the court said that it will be lawful for the state to examine whether there exists a proper mechanism for issuance of necessary certificate under the Act and rules for slaughter of animals.
A division bench comprising Chief Justice Sujoy Paul and Justice Partha Sathi Sen has held that the notification had been issued in compliance with previous orders passed by the High Court. And the court said that the sacrifice of a cow is not part of any religious festival, adding that the slaughter of animals in a public place is strictly prohibited.
The newly elected Shubhendu Adhikari government, in a notification on May 13th, they issued a set of guidelines barring animal slaughter without a fit certificate from authorities. The order also warned of penal action if the directions are not followed.
Now, a major scientific discovery may lead the world to rethink the future of both wildlife conservation and the music industry.
Scientists warn that the disappearance of African forest elephant species, it could also wipe out ebony, one of the world's most prized woods used to make guitars. Research published in the journal Science Advances has revealed that African forest elephants are critical to the survival of ebony trees, whose dense jet black hardwood is widely used in premium guitars, bridges and fretboards because of its smooth, mirror-like finish.
The findings emerged from the Ebony Project in Cameroon, where researchers use camera traps and dung analysis. That is to uncover how elephants act as the primary agents of ebony seed dispersal and germination. Elephants' herds consume ebony fruit and carry the seeds for kilometers, and before excreting them across the forested areas, that is.
Scientists say the process expands the dispersal range. It reduces inbreeding and even protects the seed because rodents avoid eating seeds encased in dung.
Now, the 9-year study led by the UCLA Congo Basin Institute found 68% fewer ebony saplings in forests where elephants had disappeared.
The warning comes as African forest elephants face near extinction in the wild. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, elephant populations have reduced by nearly 80% over the past 3 decades because of habitat destruction and the illegal ivory trade.
Now, at the same time, the commercial value of ebony has made the trees a major target for logging in the Congo Basin. Now, scientists say the threat is even more alarming because ebony grows extremely slowly, with saplings taking up to 100 years to mature.
Well, all refineries go max on jet fuel as Iran war squeezes global aviation fuel supply.
Now, America's oil refineries are pumping out jet fuel at a record pace and cashing in the next report. We dive into the details on it. Take a look.
U.S. refineries are now converting 12.7% of every barrel of crude oil into aviation fuel. According to the COBIS's letter, that is up 2.2 percentage points since the Iran war began and the highest yield ever recorded. In volume terms, that means that U.S. refiners are producing roughly 250,000 more barrels of jet fuel every single day as compared to a year ago. So, why the surge? The answer lies in the Strait of Hormuz. The effective closure of this critical waterway has cut off around 400,000 barrels of aviation fuel per day from global markets. That is a massive hole in supply, and American refiners are rushing to fill it. The jet fuel market is relatively small. It accounts for less than 7.5% of total global oil demand. That means even modest changes in supply can send price sharply higher. And that is exactly what is happening. Jet fuel prices have spiked across Europe and Asia. Airlines in both regions depend heavily on fuel routed through the Gulf. With that supply disrupted, carriers are paying significantly more to keep their planes in the air. The consequences are already hitting passengers. Airfares on key international routes have climbed steeply. Travelers flying between Asia and Europe are seeing some of the steepest fare hikes. Several airlines have cut routes entirely. Some smaller carriers operating in Asia and the Gulf region have suspended operations altogether. At least 2 regional airlines have shut down, unable to absorb the fuel cost shock. Meanwhile, U.S. refiners are emerging as the clear winner. With domestic production ramping up and global buyers desperate for supply, American aviation fuel is commanding a premium on world markets. The International Energy Agency has called on refiners globally to redirect crude processing towards jet fuel. But for now, the United States holds the advantage. The Iran war is reshaping global energy flows. And in the jet fuel market, America is flying high. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, Google, Meta and TikTok have been hit with new complaints in the European Union.
And this is over allegations that they failed to protect users from financial scams on their platforms. The case adds to growing pressure on big tech companies to do more to tackle online fraud, harmful content and risk to vulnerable users.
Now, the complaints were filed by the European Consumer Organization, or BEUC, along with 29 of its member groups across 27 European countries, and they were submitted to the European Commission and national regulators under the European Union's Digital Services Act, or DSA.
Well, the law requires large online platforms to take stronger action against illegal and harmful content, including fraudulent advertisements and online scams.
The consumer groups accuse Google, Meta and TikTok of failing to effectively remove scam content, allowing fraudsters to continue targeting millions of users across Europe.
The group said that they reported nearly 900 ads suspected of breaching EU rules between December last year and March this year. According to the complaint, only 27% of those ads were removed.
Now, the groups also claim that more than half of their reports were either rejected or ignored by the platforms, and Google rejected the allegation, saying it blocks more than 99% of policy-violating ads before they are published and continuously updates its systems to stay ahead of scammers. The consumer organizations are now urging European regulators to investigate the companies and impose penalties if they are found to have breached the rules under the Digital Services Act. Companies can face fines of up to 6% of their global annual turnover for violations.
And now shifting our focus to the world of sports, it's not just Arsenal's revenue that's set to hit record levels after their Premier League triumph.
The Gunners' stock has risen on the pitch as well. PSG manager Luis Enrique has heaped praise on the Gunners ahead of their Champions League final. Listen to this first.
Il mérite de gagner cette Premier League.
I think they deserve to win this Premier League. They've had a very good and incredible year. We have experience playing against Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, and we know their ability to play with the ball very well. Without the ball, they are the best team in the world, without a doubt. And with the ball, they are capable of scoring a lot of goals. And that's an exciting and very attractive combination. Because if you don't concede any goals, and you have the ability to score goals, it's a wonderful combination for them.
The Champions League final will take place on May 30th in Budapest, and it promises to be a clash between the tournament's best defence and its most potent attack. Over the course of this campaign, Arsenal have kept 9 clean sheets and conceded just 6 goals, while reigning champions PSG have scored 44 times, the most by any team in the competition.
Well, not just that, both teams will also be looking to etch their names in the history books. Arsenal will aim to become the 10th club to win the European Cup or Champions League unbeaten. Only Bayern Munich have lifted the Champions League title with a perfect record, winning every single match during their triumph in 2020. Meanwhile, PSG will hope to become only the 2nd club to successfully defend the Champions League title in the modern era after Real Madrid, who won back-to-back titles in 2017 and 2018, and became the 9th club in the history of the competition to retain European football's biggest prize.
Right now, there's no Coupe de France for us. We're going to play a small friendly match and nothing else. We're going to do tactical training because we have the time, which is a very strange situation. We're trying to make the most of it. We will already be preparing for the Arsenal match, but we will also train on small details to attack and defend even better, if we can, if Arsenal lets us.
Well, from Rare Banksy artwork to signed scripts from the hit sitcom Friends, some of late actor Matthew Perry's most personal belongings are now going under the hammer in the United States.
Best known as the witty and lovable Chandler Bing, Perry died in 2023 at the age of 54 after a long and public battle with addiction. Now around 130 items from his estate are being auctioned to support a cause that was deeply personal to him. And the auction is being handled by Heritage Auctions, with proceeds going to the Matthew Perry Foundation. According to Roberta Kramer from Heritage Auctions, Perry always hoped his journey with substance abuse could help others struggling with addiction and recovery. Listen to this.
He felt that he could use his, celebrity and his experience in life with substance abuse to help other people. So that's exactly why he founded the Matthew Perry Foundation.
The collection was unveiled in the Beverly Hills and features several high-profile pieces from Hollywood history, including costumes worn by Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther, as well as personal fashion items once owned by Marilyn Monroe. Fans and collectors will also get a chance to own memorabilia tied closely to Perry's life and career, including signed Friends scripts, jewelry, personal photographs, and other keepsakes connected to the beloved sitcom star. And organizers say the proceeds from Perry's collection will support addiction recovery initiatives and research being carried out with the Massachusetts General Hospital. Well, that's all on World DNA for today. News and updates will follow on the other side. We leave you with some climate stories making headlines across the world. Do stay tuned. You're watching Beyond What Is Fun.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Adya Juneja and this is Speed News. Let's start with all the stories making headlines today. US President Donald Trump said the United States does not want tolls on the Strait of Hormuz and vowed to seize Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Speaking at the White House, Trump declared the uranium would likely be destroyed to prevent Tehran from keeping it. Iran is believed to hold about 900 pounds of enriched uranium, which Trump claims was buried after US and Israeli airstrikes nearly a year ago. Retrieving the material is part of his stated objective to ensure Iran is not allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. US President Donald Trump said he was sending 5,000 troops to Poland after Washington said an earlier planned deployment had been called off amid pressure on Europe to fend for itself. Trump said the move was based on his relationship with Poland's President Karol Nawrocki, a nationalist ally whom he said he was proud to endorse in elections that Nawrocki won last year. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said chances of peaceful negotiated settlement with Cuba are low, despite Washington's preference for diplomacy. He noted that U.S. will continue pressuring the island's government while Trump pushes for regime change in Cuba. Protests erupted in Nuuk as the United States opened a larger diplomatic hub in Greenland. Several hundred demonstrators marched with the island's red and white flag, chanting anti-US slogans. Greenland's Prime Minister and other officials declined to attend the opening, which saw the US move from a small cabin to a new downtown consulate. The State Department says the expanded venue strengthens American diplomatic engagement, but for many Greenlanders, it has become a symbol of opposition to Washington's growing influence on the Arctic island. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum met with U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Mark-Wayne Mullen in Mexico City during a high-level security visit. Well, the meeting, also attended by U.S. Ambassador Ronald Johnson and Mexico's Foreign Minister Roberto Velasco, was shared by Sheinbaum on social media. Sheinbaum said both sides agreed to continue working together within a framework of respect between their countries. The talks come as Mexico faces mounting pressure from the Trump administration to curb illegal migration and intensify efforts against powerful cartels. The United Nations say Israeli settlers carried out 49 attacks in the West Bank between May 12th and May 18th, including arson against homes, farmland, vehicles, and a mosque. Officials report have recorded more than 870 settler attacks this year across 200 communities. Rising violence comes as Israel accelerates settlement building, drawing international alarm. The United Nations and most countries deem Israel's settlements on West Bank land captured in the 1967 war as illegal, a view that Israel disputes. Thousands of students marched through Sao Paulo, burning effigies and waving flags before gathering outside the Bandeira Ranches Palace. The protest targeted Governor Tarcísio de Freitas, with demonstrators demanding increased funding for public universities and denouncing police violence on campuses. The rally marks one of the largest student mobilizations in recent months, underscoring growing tensions between the state government and academic communities in Brazil's largest city. Brazilian indigenous leader chief Raoni Metuktire has been discharged from hospital after several days in intensive care for respiratory problems. Doctors say his condition is stable and under control, but he will continue to need medical care. Raoni, one of the Amazon's most iconic advocates, left the hospital in Sino, marking a hopeful step in his recovery. Israel says it has deported all foreign activists detained after intercepting a Gaza-bound flotilla at sea, with the first group arriving in Turkey. Around 422 activists, including 85 Turkish nationals, were flown out on chartered planes following their detention by Israeli authorities. Several activists alleged they were abused while in custody, claiming they were beaten, tasered, and assaulted after Israeli forces intercepted their boats in international waters. Özgür Özel has been ousted as leader of Turkey's main opposition party, the CHP, by a court ruling in Ankara. The decision sparked mass protests with thousands gathering outside party headquarters in support. The CHP, Turkey's oldest political party, won a sweeping victory over President Erdogan's AKP in the 2024 local elections and has been rising in the polls. Addressing the crowd, Özgür Özel struck a defiant tone, insisting that the CHP would not serve as a token opposition. A residential building collapsed in the Moroccan city of Fes, killing 9 people and injuring several others. Authorities say the toll remains preliminary, with investigations underway to determine how many were inside the 5-story structure when it crumbled. The accident follows a series of deadly collapses in Fes, including incidents last year that killed more than 30 people. Muslim pilgrims from around the world are gathering in Mecca as the annual Hajj pilgrimage begins. More than 1 million worshippers have already arrived in Saudi Arabia, converging on Islam's holiest sites to reform the sacred and perform the sacred rituals. Well, this year's Hajj takes place under the shadow of conflict in West Asia, where tensions remain high despite a fragile ceasefire. Saudi authorities have mobilized extensive security and logistical measures to manage the vast crowds, ensuring the safety of pilgrims as they move between holy sites. Millions more are expected to join in the coming days, underscoring the enduring significance of the Hajj for Muslims worldwide. A crowd set fire to Ebola isolation tents and attacked a hospital in the northeastern Congolese town of Rwempara after a dispute erupted over the burial of a man suspected of dying from the disease. The violence comes as authorities struggle to contain the latest Ebola outbreak in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where the World Health Organization said there were 600 suspected cases and 139 suspected deaths linked to the virus in Congo and Uganda. The outbreak, centered in Ituri province, where Rwempara is located, involves the rare Bundibugyo strain of Ebola, for which there is currently no approved vaccine. Police used tear gas to disperse demonstrators, while blockades and attacks have complicated safe burial seen by health officials as critical to stopping the spread. Miners and workers continue mass protests in La Paz, demanding President Rodrigo Paz step down. The unrest follows his cabinet reshuffle aimed at calming tensions. Graffiti across the capital calls for his removal just months after the pro-business leader ended 2 decades of socialist rule. Police have used tear gas to block demonstrators from swarming government buildings in La Paz, where protest blockades have depleted food supplies and pushed prices up. Analysts blame a combination of policy missteps and clashes with interest groups for the unrest. Peruvian archaeologists have uncovered a significant find at the pre-Hispanic fortress of Cuelap in the Amazonas region. A U-shaped tomb containing the remains of 5 individuals, along with ceremonial offerings dating back approximately 6 centuries, was unearthed during the first systematic excavation at one of the fortress's access points. The discovery provides new insight into the burial practices and cultural traditions of the Chachapoya civilization, often referred to as the warriors of the cloud. Experts say the findings highlight the historical importance of Cuelap, a monumental complex perched high in the Andes and considered one of Peru's most treasured archaeological sites. "19 people have been killed in a shooting at a palm plantation in Honduras' northern Bajo Aguan region, an area long associated with gang violence and disputes over land and drug trafficking routes. Now, the incident comes as Honduras moves forward with stricter anti-gun security measures aimed at curbing escalating violence across the country. Anthropic is in early talks to rent servers powered by Microsoft-designed chips to support its growing AI demand, which is according to reports. Now, the deal, if finalized, would be a major win for Microsoft's push into in-house AI chip development. Anthropic, creator of Cloud, is already working with major cloud and chip partners as it seeks alternatives to NVIDIA. Microsoft has been expanding its AI hardware strategy with its MAIA chip series as competition in AI infrastructure intensifies. Waymo has paused its robo-taxi services in Atlanta and San Antonio after vehicles struggle to handle heavy rain and flooded roads. In Atlanta, one unoccupied robo-taxi entered a flooded street and got stuck for about an hour before being removed. Now, the company said safety is its top priority and it is working on fixes after a recent software recall. Waymo admitted its current updates still do not fully prevent vehicles from entering high-risk flooded areas despite added restrictions. JP Morgan, a major global investment bank and financial services company, is rolling out AI tools across its global investment banking operations as it accelerates adoption of new technology in the financial sector. The bank says AI is being used to improve efficiency, streamline preparation of materials, and enhance client engagement. CEO Jamie Dimons also signaled plans to hire more AI specialists while reducing traditional banking roles. The move reflects a wider shift across global banks as they invest heavily in AI and reshape workforce structures. Asian markets moved higher as investors tracked diplomatic efforts between the United States and Iran aimed at easing tensions in West Asia. Japan's Nikkei gained more than 1% after inflation slowed more than expected, reducing pressure on the Bank of Japan to raise interest rates soon. Markets in South Korea, Hong Kong, China, and Australia also advanced. Oil prices rebounded after recent declines as uncertainty over Iran's nuclear program continued to cloud peace negotiations with Washington. Meanwhile, Wall Street closed higher overnight, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting a record high. Oil prices climbed as investors grew doubtful about a breakthrough in US-Iran peace talks amid ongoing tensions over Tehran's uranium stockpile and the Strait of Hormuz. Brent rose above $104 a barrel, while crude also gained after both benchmarks had fallen earlier this week. Markets remain concerned that instability in West Asia will continue to disrupt global energy supplies, with around 14% of world oil production still affected. Analysts warn oil prices could remain volatile as negotiations drag on and OPEC Plus producers prepare to discuss output levels next month.